isn't the only precious commodity here. In 1903, Kalgoorlie was given a lifeline by Charles O'Connor, the state's chief engineer, who 6 years earlier had built Fremantle Harbour. His plan was a water pipe, but not just any old water pipe. This was going to be a massive pipeline going all the way from Perth right through to Kalgoorlie. A really audacious piece of engineering, 566 kilometres, and it would cost a fortune. They were going to have to borrow £2.5 million from London in order to get the money to build it. Nevertheless, after 5 years of trouble and strife and arguments, it finally reached Kalgoorlie, the tap was turned on, and the town at last had its own fresh water. But the celebrations on January the 24th, 1903 were tinged with sadness. So, Mike, there was one person who wasn't here who should have been, wasn't there?
There was, yes. My great-grandfather, Charles Yelverton O'Connor, the chief engineer of West Australia.
And he wasn't here because?
He killed himself 10 months before the water arrived.
Why was that?
Well, it was the real stress of the job had really finally got to him. And a month before, the Sunday Times, there was an article in which it mentioned words like corruption and this Shire engineer and greasing his palm and all those sort of things he knew were wrong.
So why did they think that?
Well, mainly because it's a huge project and no one really understands it. The harbour went quickly, how come the pipeline isn't going as quickly? And so they start looking at reasons. The first story was, the cement isn't good enough, it'll come down and Perth will be flooded, and then the pipes, the quality is inferior, and any intelligent person, including the chief engineer, could see that, said one anonymous source. So he had all this sort of pressure going on.
And none of this is true?
None of this is true. In fact, after he died, very soon afterwards, when they looked at his books, they found out he had less than 200 quid to his name. He never owned property. And he had a big family, he had 7 kids, but he would be very cautious about going out and mixing with people in case it was seen as he was greasing his own palm, which he never did. The sad thing is that within months of him dying, all that criticism disappeared.
Thankfully, his pipeline hasn't. He sits proudly alongside the Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme and the Sydney Harbour Bridge as civil engineering works that profoundly changed Australia. Right, time to head for town. But which town? All right, it's called Tony Robinson's Time Walks and I'm getting in a car. So sue me under the Trade Practices Act. You'll see why in a minute. I'm taking a drive about 20 kilometres up the road to a place called Kanowna. Like Kalgoorlie, it sprang up in 1893 when alluvial gold was discovered. Unlike Kalgoorlie, pretty soon the gold was drying up, and the town's future with it. And that is where Father Long came in. He was a local Catholic priest who said he'd been shown a gold nugget so big he called it the sacred nugget. And what is more, he knew where it had been found, although he'd been sworn to secrecy. So did that mean that Kanowna's fortunes were now on the turn? Certainly a lot of miners got very excited about it and wanted to know where it was. So eventually Father Long said he would tell them. And he went to a local hotel and he stood on a veranda with them all crowded around him. But when he started to speak, what he said was so vague that pretty soon the miners realised that he'd no idea of the location of this nugget. Either Father Long was hoaxing them or else someone else had hoaxed Father Long, and they got very angry and said they were going to burn the town down. They didn't, but what I find so interesting about the story 100 years on is this. We have managed to find a photo of all the miners gathering round to hear what Father Long had got to say. Look at the size of that crowd and the size of the hotel. And now, all that's left of it is that. an hourly train service to Kalgoorlie. For the last 60 years, it's been scrub, dust, flies, and fading memories of a gold town that didn't quite make it. Funny, isn't it? The fine line between Kalgoorlie's success and Kanowna's failure is about 20 kilometres. Still, out here, everything seems bigger than usual. I've just seen the most ridiculous thing I've ever come across in my entire travels. Look, I understand the world's biggest marina or the tallest skyscraper or the oldest bridge or whatever, but the world's tallest rubbish bin. Look. Just doesn't make any sense, does it? Chuck it in the bin, will you? I don't know. Maybe it's Kalgoorlie's odd sense of humour. You get a lot of it in frontier towns. In the old days, there were 14 pubs along Hannon Street, and if a newcomer came to town, the old guys would wind them up by making a bet with them. Do you know about this bet?
No, I don't.
I'll tell you. The bet was, you went to pub 1 and you had to drink a teaspoon of beer. Then pub 2, 2 teaspoons, and so on and so on and so on. And if you could keep doubling up to pub 14, then you won the bet.
That sounds easy.
It does sound easy, doesn't it?
Yes.
But I have $50 here that says you can't do that.
I'll match your 50.
Yeah?
Done.
What's your name?
Neville.
Right, Neville. Bailey, have you got a spoon?
Yes.
Maybe borrow it for a sec. Okay. So you are in pub number 1.
Yes.
And here we go.
Easy.
Pub 2. Pub
My
3.
wife's going to kill me.
Pub number 4 is 8 of these. Just to speed things up, I'll just tip it into another one for the moment. Whoops, that's 1 ounce.
Yep.
Pub 5, 2 ounces. Pub 6, 4. Pub 7, 8 ounces, which is an entire glass of beer. All right? Very nice.
Thank you.
Very
Very nice.
refreshing, yeah. Pub number 8, you've got 2. Bailey, could you get 4 glasses out for pub number 9? Thank you. And 8 for pub number 10. Pub 11, 16, and pub 12, 32, 13, 64. By the time you get to pub 14, you have got to drink, at that pub alone, 128 glasses for the final pub.
I think I need some friends to help me.
I think you will. In fact, I think you've lost that bet, haven't
I think
you?
you're right.
But you've learned something today.
Yes,
haven't
I
you?
have.
Thank you very much, Bailey. I shouldn't try this at home if I were you, but thank you very much. Go well, you two. Can you make sure he gets home safe?
Better luck next time.